The governor said that he gave the ledge, I think, a B. Mm-hmm. And he said that's because he's tough on his grading. And I know that now it's over said and done, that there were a lot of examples of both parties being able to work together. Mm-hmm. But what would your grade be? I mean, in an election year, we didn't expect a lot, but there was a fair bit.
Yeah, I'm going to say for Republicans, I'm going to give us an A-. Mm-hmm. I think we did very well this session. Most of us did. And I think overall, A-. I think we did a good job. Okay,
now, that being said, the things that would lead to an A- mm-hmm. would be things that made sense for everybody, no matter what their party, right?
Right, and I think it depends on. There are other people that might give the session a different grade, but for me, especially for conservatives, we had very few tax increases, and to think we started the session talking about whether or not there would be a GET increase, and now we had no tax increases. I think that's impressive.
I think that almost everybody should rejoice in the fact. Well, there are some concerns because the counties wanted more money and didn't get it.
That's true.
So that means a lot of times that the counties who are forced to provide goods and services are going to have to look elsewhere for revenue. Right. And a lot of us homeowners get a little nervous.
Right.
And this one guy said, well, I'm a renter, so it doesn't affect me.
It still affects them.
Yeah, of course it does. Because if you're the landlord and your costs go up, guess what, tenant? Here comes, So has there ever been, in your knowledge, any type of a rent control ever suggested for Hawaii? I do know that there's some places
suggested.
Yeah. I don't think it's ever gone anywhere.
No, it hasn't.
I think that in big cities where there are tenement organizations and there are landlords of these little flea traps that are all over the place, they just fight, don't they? Yeah. What about some of the things that you are happy about? I mean, if you got if you're giving them an A-, the Republican side, what would be outside of saving a lot of dollars? Maybe some of the bills that just made sense in that they cleaned up other badly worded legislation.
Yeah, there were
a
lot of bills that just were technical in nature, and a lot of times that's what our job is. I think the big stuff was the big stuff, like I said, that didn't pass, and that's mainly. And I think we passed a budget that was better than it could have been. Yeah. It wasn't conservative budget, but it was better than it could have been.
Yeah, and I think sometimes that's the compromises that the minority party has to accept because you know that it's not going to pretty much go your way. Right. Okay, before traffic.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to the phone. I got somebody who is an anonymous person. This is in Pearl City. Good morning, anonymous person.
Oh, how you doing, Mike?
Good.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I don't know if you guys remember me, but I called about a month back. I was complaining about not getting my unemployment benefits. I finally got it, so I don't know what you did.
Oh, great!
Yeah,
good for you. And if my memory serves me right, hadn't you been looking around for a while, and you really want to work? You just haven't been able to get a job.
Yes, thank you for mentioning it, Mike. Because now I'm fully employed, full time, and in a permanent position that I really love, and I just really started, and this is like a job that just speaks to my skills, and I don't know. There's a God up there, There's a God up there watching all of us.
Well, good for you.
I just wanted to thank you too for letting me.
No.
That's great.
It was Beth that called that to the attention of folks.
Yes. And Beth, again, I'm in your district. I got your letter, and I'm gonna contact you soon.
Excellent.
There you had a boy. Thank you, anonymous person. Glad it worked out. And by the way, isn't that a day maker?
It
when
is.
You hear stuff like that,
Yes.
Yeah, you don't have to put up with too much bogus amogus. But interestingly enough, isn't it sort of funny that there are so many people that are getting entitlements of whatever, and there's so many people that deserve it, that jump through all kinds of loops, and it takes them forever to get what they're entitled to.
Yeah.
There are people that will tell a scofflaw how to get around things.
Right.
Here's how you get this. Here's how you're enabling that. Here's how you can get the food stamps. Here's how you can get the low-cost housing. And here's a guy that just wants a bridge between jobs.
Yeah.
Well, you got taken care of.
Now, back to the Mike Buck Show on 690 The Answer.
Well, the heat is on for when you're doing your campaigning. But the heat is off, Beth Fukumoto Chang, at least on Monday mornings for the session, for the time being, because the session is all possible. What we're going to try to do today is give you a little more specific recap on sort of how the session went, and more important, maybe where the session's going. I mean, obviously, there's going to be a huge change. Beth, there's a lot of people. In fact, your seat, as every seat in the House comes up.
Yes, that's correct.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot of campaigning. Okay,
let's let us go to the phones real quick, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about this. I got Glenn in Clee. Is going to be joining us next. Glenn, good morning. Say hello to Beth Chang.
Good morning.
Good morning. I saw in the paper yesterday, Senate Bill 2077 about the severance pay to workers.
Yes.
They're going to be privatized. Yeah, Maui Memorial, Kula, and Lanai Community.
Oh, the hospital folks, yeah.
Yeah. And but Wes Machida, the state budget director, said it's precedent setting and it's going to threaten the sustainability of the retirement system. It's going to cost $40 million.
Yikes.
So what do you think about that?
We privatized those hospitals. We had promised workers that when we did it, that they would still get their benefits. And we did a lot for Maui this year because they also have sugar closing down. They had the hospital getting privatized. There were a lot of workers that were displaced. But there are concerns that it's precedent setting. I think in this case, it's something that the legislature had to do because we kind of had made promises already. But I don't think it's something that we need to be looking at for every single other worker.
What about other hospitals? Should they run into the same situation?
I think we need to be much more careful about how we word it. If the legislature decides to privatize. Now, I was against the privatization to begin with. I ended up voting yes because they made a good case that Maui basically needed it, that it was a life or death situation. I don't think that there are other hospitals that are in a similar position, and I'm not in favor of privatizing the rest of them.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for your call. And by the way, that matters because when you take a look at these models and you make a change, if it's still going to cost you the same,
right?
And you would say, well, maybe it's going to increase efficiency. Doesn't the gist of that put people more on a performance basis than a guarantee?
Yes.
And isn't that why? If I'm doing the same work as you, and I'm getting paid a bunch more money just because I've got seniority, doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Right. If you come up out of the nowhere.
Right.
Okay. Former Senator John Carroll. Oh my. Hello there, John. Good morning.
Hey, John.
Yeah. Good morning. I didn't know you were going to say that, but anyway.
Didn't know I was going to say what.
Thank you so much for your leadership in the House, and I know how difficult it is with the few folks that you have to be able to get anything done. But what I wanted to just share with you this morning is where there seems to be a lot of anti-Trump feeling going on. And when he first ran, I thought, this idiot, what's he doing here? But in long story short, back a long time ago, I had the opportunity to spend time with Richard Nixon, and he was I had been a hawk on the Vietnam War, and he was telling me about deploying of American troops. But the main thing he was talking about was international trade and how if we're going to have world peace, it's not going to come through war or military. It's going to come through international commerce. And like I say, I was totally against Trump. But the more I heard him, what I hear bubbling through everything is that this fellow has more international commerce than anybody we've ever had run for president, maybe than Herbert Hoover. So I was already a member of the Carson campaign at that point. I wrote to the Carson people and told them, you guys should, get off the presidential trail and back up Trump for this and go for vice president, which they haven't. They didn't do it because I said so, but they are doing it now. But I think he's going to be a tremendous president, and I know there's a lot of anti-Trump feeling in this town, and you as a leader, I wasn't sure how you felt, but I just thought I'd throw that in for whatever it's worth. I'll listen off the air. Thanks, you.
John.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. And, it's sort of interesting because, if you want to talk about been there, done that, John Carroll's been around for a while.
Yes.
And to make a shift and go from a Carson-type backer to a Trump-type backer, I don't know about you, and I don't want to change anybody's mind, but I think a lot of stuff goes on early in the piece in any campaign that is kind of ugly, and Donald Trump has been kind of ugly. And now I don't know if he's reaching out or if his handlers are just saying, Donald, you got it.
Right.
Back off. Get these people to be with you. It's
Right.
interesting.
Yeah, I have two thoughts. The first is, I get why people like Donald Trump. I completely understand. The Republican establishment has been problematic for years, and there are a lot of people that are upset, and they got even more upset when the establishment decided they were going to try to rig or the election, basically. Now, that said, I think especially in Hawaii, Donald Trump has said a lot of things that aren't going to be forgivable. I don't think when you make comments about Japanese Americans and maybe internment was a good idea. I don't see people forgiving that, right? So I'm in a tough situation because that's not
but by the same token, what about all of the Hillary lovers,
right?
That all of a sudden say, well, you can't say what you did to the coal workers and then turn around 3 months later and tell them you didn't say that.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, we live in a world of sound bites, right? You know this.
Oh, absolutely.
I got Bill Clinton saying I did not have sex with that woman,
right.
But people forget these things, don't they?
People do forget. I think there are some things, and you just end up figuring out what, as a candidate, I think the presidential candidates are figuring out what they can get away with and what they can't, and we'll see what sticks.
Our listeners surmise this, and I'm asking you if you hear this at all. Mm-hmm. I think that because you've had some great success in your district, you know that at least the affinity that you get from voters is real, because otherwise they're not throwing eggs at you when you walk up there to their house, right? They're nice to you. And I think that almost every representative, no matter what branch of government they are, in their at-home district feels the same way. But yet, when you take a look at the national statistics show that people are in almost single digits approving Congress.
Right. They say that people hate Congress, but people like their Congressperson.
Right. Well, when you boil it down, that means that if you like one person, you don't like 49.
That's right. And you'll probably, the same Congress will keep getting reelected.
Yeah. So that being said, in many respects, you have to credit somebody that speaks. Listen. I think that Donald Trump is a loose cannon. I mean, you just never know what the guy's going to say.
True.
But it turns out he got a lot of votes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. People were really angry this year.
Interesting today. What's your take on this? Just as we started, Raphael gave me a breaking story. House Speaker Ryan said today that if Donald Trump wants him to step down as co-chair of the GOP, he will. He'll respect his wishes. But he also says he hopes he and Trump can begin to get to know each other when they meet later this week.
Yeah.
What's your Beth Fukumoto feeling about eventually? Do you think that he's been holding out because he wants some assurances from Donald that he'll do the right thing? Because I feel that he's going to endorse him. It's just a matter of time.
I think he's going to have to as Speaker of the House, but I appreciate that he said something in his press conference a few days ago. He said unity for unity's sake is just doesn't make a lot of sense right now, and I appreciate that. I think that's something, as a party, sure, we're eager to get together, but if we get together at the cost of our values, at the cost of progress for the party, then what's the point?
Yeah,
right.
Well,
and I think that's what he's saying.
Interestingly enough. Maybe we spend 1 minute here on how parties change. Yeah. I mean, look at the way the emphasis is shifting right now to transgender bathrooms. 10 years ago, if you'd have brought that subject up, people laugh at you.
Right.
Go away, get out of here. But now we are looking at a lot of things differently. So it means that the parties, both of them, got to change. Yeah,
and I think, it was interesting this weekend. I don't know if you saw Richard Barreca's column. On Donald Trump specifically, and he said, the Republican Party is no longer the party of Lincoln or Reagan, it's the party of Trump. He's our next nominee, and we're not George W. Bush's, and we'll see what that looks like.
Okay, we got specific things we're going to talk about after the break, but before the break, one more question. I was talking to Beth off the air about campaigning, and one of the things that you said, you wanted to get an idea early if people wanted to chat. And you sent out a piece to your district saying, look, I'm going to be making the rounds, but if you want something said or done right now, call me up and we'll see if we can take care of you. And you thought, well, you might get a little trickling of response. You got hammered. That means that people want to know, right?
Yeah, so we got a lot of people that just, sure, come to my house. And it was fun. I got to meet their neighbors. It's been great.
Good food?
good food. They've been giving me food.
They probably think because she's slender. Oh, poor thing, you got to eat.
All kinds
Come
of
in here,
food.
you got to eat.
Yeah,
right?
it was very nice.
One more thing. The Democrat Party's lawyer here is talking about making some road possible to make somebody be a full-blown registered card-carrying Democrat to be able to vote. And the first comment by one of the pundits was, hey, wait a minute. Isn't this party significantly in front of everybody? Right. Why are they worried about this? Weren't they specifically worried because of the number of people that showed up and ousted Hillary?
Yeah, I'm sure that's
Hawaii.
Yes, yeah. I'm sure that's some of it. And in Hawaii, there's such an influx of people running as Democrats, joining the party that aren't, just because that's where the action is, right? And if I was a Democrat, I feel like I would be concerned too that the party's getting sort of diluted from what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, and that's why sometimes, if you take a look at things, sometimes the Hawaii Republican caucus, weren't they put in a position where, we got to kind of vote for this, because if we want to get support on this guy, which is important to us, we better support this bill, even though it's distasteful. Did that happen sometimes?
I think the good thing is most of the bills that we didn't like, we were able to get some compromise on to make good changes. So to me, once you make a compromise, you can't turn around and say no anyway. Right. If you can get them to change things for the better, you got to go with it. And so, we voted for some things that maybe if Republicans were in power, we wouldn't have voted for, but we're not in power. Good
news is they don't run the printing press. The spending, the budget's been done. There were some victories on both sides for that. We'll talk about that. But right now it's time for our 7:30 report, because it's 7:30.com.
Have you got a question? Want the answer? It's right here and right now. Here's more of the Mike Buck Show on 690, The Answer.
Okay, so I played the call me deal. In case you want to get motivated and call Beth Fukumoto Chang, it's easy. 296-KHNR, that's 296-5467. And don't forget, in our 8 o'clock hour today, Jackie Boland from the AARP in the house. She's a community outreach director. And also along with her is retired Colonel Gene Castagnetti. He's the governor's chair on the Vietnam War commemoration activities. It's about time that's going on. And since we are, I guess, the state with the best place to age, except for money, there were some bills that dealt with part of that, and there were some bills that dealt with other things. So it looks like one of the bills that did pass, I don't know how we're going to afford it if it's going to get funded, but we're going to try to air condition 8 million schools all at once. Yeah. So wow, that's a lot of money.
It's cooling. It's heat abatement, right?
Yeah, heat abatement.
So it's air conditioning.
Why do we make up new things like?
Well, because it's not just air conditioning, right? So we looked at some schools and said, air conditioning might be too pricey. We could just put fans or attic fans or change the windows or there's some cheaper things we can do. When you put air conditioning into a school, you have to basically retrofit the roof, the insulation, and it gets crazy expensive. So heat abatement for the 8,000 classrooms.
Yeah, but here's the thing, and about my guys from Revolution. They went to one school and they put in a system. It is coming to that because AC that's run by PV that doesn't need additional electric power, if the school can handle the cost of it, they don't need it at night. They don't have to have batteries. They can just air condition it during the day, right?
Right. And so one of the other things we passed was a net zero energy policy for the schools. So that the schools are going to be focusing more on PV and other technologies to make sure they're not actually using electricity.
I do know that one of the big, and we talked about this a long time ago, there's a lot of parent groups that were going out and raising money to buy fans or buy air conditioners. And what they didn't understand is that sometimes, as much as you want to put 14 air conditioners in these rooms, the school doesn't have the power to do that.
Right. So the actual electrical upgrades haven't been done on some schools yet. So we're looking at, when we say we're going to cool 8,000 classrooms, we're looking at a lot of money going into some of the schools, including electrical upgrades, insulation, all that stuff.
Isn't it very difficult to differentiate money going into, say, DOE into teaching curriculum from money that's going into making the classrooms more pleasant? I do know that people don't understand those are two different pockets.
Two different pockets. The legislature had to appropriate funds specifically for the cooling project. And in the beginning when we started session, I would have told you it's going to be way too expensive. We can't do it.
Yeah.
That amount of money got pared down so that, like I said, it's not air conditioning a bunch of schools. We're also using fans and other things.
What I think is great is the way that everybody seemed to encompass input from people with expertise.
Right.
Whether they be a fan guy or a PV guy or a whatever guy. Right.
Right. And this, I think the AC in schools or the heat abatement plan is a good example of how everybody can work together because the public just demanded it. Right.
Yeah,
I mean, they insisted that the classrooms be cooler. So we had to figure out what to do.
Sometimes, and I was talking to a friend, as a matter of fact, I was talking to Tommy Silva from TNT Tinting. Sometimes it's a combination of things. Tint the windows, a ridge vent on the roof in where you can, a whole house exhaust fan, just sucking air out of the room. Yep. So it seems like people shouldn't freak out and think 8,000 rooms are going to get air conditioned.
No,
right. They're going to get heat abatement.
Right. And there was a set amount of money, right? It's not a blank check.
Yeah. Okay, so that was spending that you would have thought in the beginning of the session wouldn't happen, but they were able to negotiate a way for it, at least partially to happen. But
it got cheaper.
Isn't the bottom line it's going to sit on somebody's desk before a check gets signed?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So the governor actually, this bill he actually did sign already. It was one of the first bills that he signed. So.
But people need to get explained to him. Let's say that there's all these bills sitting on the governor's desk. And let's say he signs 3/4 of them.
Right.
And most of them have something to do with an appropriation somewhere.
Right.
But that doesn't mean they're going to get paid or done.
Right. So he can sign the bill, and then he's going to have to release the funds. Two separate actions.
Right.
I think for this bill in particular, it was such a show.
I was going to say, it looks so good.
We had a ceremony and everything. It was such a show that I think, the money will get released.
Okay. So. But that actually happens with everything. Now, I do know from special interest groups and others that there's a number of bills sitting on the governor's desk. People still need to know when you say the session's done, it's done. I mean, what you guys got together and gals got together to do this year has been accomplishment. Your work's done.
Yes, unless so there's always the option, right? If the governor vetoes stuff, so things they go to the governor, they sit on his desk. He has a set amount of time to decide to sign it, or just let it go into law without his signature, or to veto it. Okay,
so that's like 45 days or something, whatever.
Yeah, it's a while, yeah.
Let's say that there's a bill that a lot of folks are upset about, that he vetoes.
Yes.
Can they get the veto overturned?
Yeah, so the legislature has to come back into session. We need 2/3 of the legislature. So our session is done. We could always come back for a veto override session.
Yeah. Do you think that's likely in an election year? Because I don't.
I don't think so. Yeah. And one of the bills that I thought would have gotten overridden was the right to try bill. The governor vetoed that, and we could have
Okay. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Right to try what?
Okay, experimental medicines.
Okay.
So if you're dying of cancer and there's something that hasn't passed the FDA yet, or but you want to try, it would allow you to try without it being like a criminal activity, right? Which now it would be. The governor vetoed it. He said that they're working on it nationally. We don't need to do it in Hawaii. We thought the legislature was going to override it, but our House Speaker decided not to.
Okay, now that being said, let's take a look at the other side of it, and that is, for a long, long time, Hawaii was way at the end of the list for the approval of medical marijuana. That went away with a vengeance. I mean, we got to a point now where, okay, here are the guys that get the deals.
Yeah.
Does this need any more legislation, or is this I don't want to say trial, but is this initial phase just going to go into effect now on its own?
Well, we actually just did there's another bill to basically clean up the law, including allowing growing in greenhouses instead of in closed facilities. Greenhouses are closed, right? So you could have a clear roof on your building that's growing marijuana. So there were some changes made this year, but I think now we'll see a rollout.
What about the thought that some of these people are considered criminals because they can't get a bank to take their money?
Right.
So I mean, that's because maybe people don't understand. Maybe you can explain it. In Hawaii, we have relaxed our concerns about marijuana, medical marijuana.
Yes.
But the feds haven't.
The feds have not. Yeah. So banks are hesitant to take cash. take money from any of these organizations. So, you're going to see a few more problems with embezzlement and
and I would bet you the guys that love this most are the guys that sell safes. Big old metal safes. Okay. Yeah. Beth Fukumoto Chang in the house. We got a few more minutes to spend with each other. If you got a question or concern about a bill, when we come back, we're going to talk about a few others. And the reality of them is what it takes to get one of these things through, and then what the office have to do after it's through to make sure that it happens the way it was approved. That's the trick. It's 7:45, Mail-In Morning.
Now, back to Mike on 690.
Okay, unfortunately, zero email for you during this segment with Beth Fukumoto Chang. Beth and I have been here every Monday. This is our final Monday. It's kind of sad, but she'll be back. It's our final Monday of a Minority Monday. We've been doing this for years, and Beth, I remember the first day you walked in here, you were a little nervous about being on the radio, huh? Yeah, but now look at you. You take charge. You're the boss. Okay, you got a chance to chit chat. Let's go out to Waipahu and talk with Bob next. Thanks for waiting, Bob. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. Okay, I apologize. I didn't hear the first part of the hour here, but we are bailing out, and I have pros and cons about feelings on that, on the employees in the state hospitals. Do we have any idea what that's going to cost us?
We talked about it a little bit, Beth. I don't know.
The actual price tag, I am not sure that we had, to be honest. I would have to look that up.
Yeah, we'll try to do that. But we talked about it a little bit earlier, and Beth said that real caution is needed going forward to make sure that some of these agreements aren't as encompassing as this one was, because it's going to be expensive.
Right.
Right. Okay. I'm sorry I didn't call it.
We'll try to get it, but we'll make a point. I'll get you the answer, even if it's not in this hour. Okay.
That's fine. Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. Thanks for your call. It is interesting what's going on with that. Let's go next to. This is our buddy Boyd out there in Hollywood. Hey, Boyd. Good morning.
Oh, hi, Beth, and
good morning.
Mike, thanks for taking my call.
What's up?
Hey, I noticed on a recent summary of the bills that were coming out of the legislature that the Airbnb bill seems to have been modified to require some kind of confirmation that county ordinances are being followed by those for whom the taxes are being, forwarded to the state by these middlemen.
Mm-hmm.
Was that provision modified, and did it seem effective to you? Because we've got a lot of homelessness in part because of running up prices with commercial uses in neighborhoods. We've got 16% penetration on the North Shore of mostly unpermitted vacation rentals.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot.
Was that thing changed enough to make it, that it would work?
I think it probably depends. It depends on who you talk to. I think most people would tell you, most of the people that were against the bill would tell you that it's not good enough, that right now we have terrible enforcement, and that enforcement will continue to be pretty terrible on the city and county side. I think from a state perspective, the idea was basically we're going to tax them no matter what, and it's not the state's job to enforce the county laws. Now, I know a lot of people.
In other
don't
words,
agree
if you're
with
making
that.
the money, you're going to get taxed, whether it's right or not.
Right, and I know a lot of people aren't going to agree with that, especially people on the North Shore. So that's where we got the bulk of our no votes, were people that were in communities on the beach, basically.
Boyd, let me ask you this. There's always been an argument, look, those properties are not the ones that are keeping people homeless. But that's in a way not true, right? Because let's say that I'm renting this place out. It's going to get more money in that system than it would be to a regular renter, and it's inventory off the market, no matter what level.
Yeah, it's a cascading effect.
Right.
If you can make $8,000, $9,000, $10,000, $11,000 a month from a non-owner occupied rental on the beach, the people that would have rented there in the past, because it used to be low income housing all throughout the North Shore.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's a super high income, and everybody's been forced out. And then the ones who can afford rent take another place, and that runs the rent up there, and then they take another place, and finally you get down to where you need $1,200 a month just to have a house to stay in.
Yeah, boy.
So it is a homelessness cause, and 16% penetration is just unacceptable.
Yeah, the North Shore has a terrible problem with this. Yeah.
Hey, Boyd, thanks for your call. Let's take a look at the bigger picture on that for a minute, because here's the deal. First of all, I was flabbergasted to find out the number of units. Airbnb, for example, I mean, when they said that they are somehow controlling or steering 10,000 units in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Holy, that's just one company.
and people can make a lot of money off of it. Now, I think, like I said, I think the city and county needs to do a better job at legalizing some, because the problem is they're just not granting any permits, so it's causing an illegal market. Now, if they were granting some permits and not others, it'd be easier for them to go after the people that are breaking the law.
You know what, though? The comments that we get from people are, look, I call enough, nothing happens.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
There's no feeling of satisfaction that I've turned in somebody that's apparently breaking the law, because don't they actually have to physically come out there and witness it?
They do. And that, and so maybe on the county side, they need to adjust those ordinances so it's a little bit easier if they catch them advertising, right?
Well, there's this one guy that they said that those were pictures of his house, but he's not in it. That they inadvertently use that. That's just like the scammers that are showing you how to rent this beautiful 3-bedroom house, send me $1,000, and they just grab it out of the newspaper, right?
Right.
Yeah. It is a scary deal, but is it, some are just saying it was just a way, for excuse the expression, for the state to do another money grab. Because it's there, they got to collect it.
Right. And my feeling is if you're making money, then you need to be following the laws of the state, and you should be paying your taxes. That's what keeps us from having to raise taxes on the other people that are paying their taxes, right? Is if we can get money elsewhere by closing loopholes. And that, to me, that's what this was. Okay,
you get to brag now about some bills that were specifically brought up by the minority and went through all of the battles that they had to and became law.
Yeah, I think, a couple things, and we had one of the best bills that I thought we passed was for sex trafficking, and Representative Lauren Matsumoto, who is a Republican, was able to pass that. She's my neighbor in Mililani. We had a couple other bills for the National Guard, another bill for STD testing. And I think, the best thing was that we had, of the priorities that we had put out as a minority caucus at the beginning of the year, which included things like a forensic facility in the state hospital, making sure the GET didn't increase. If you look at our 10 priorities, almost all of them happened this year. And I think that, that's a big success.
Well, what I always ask at the end of a session, and I asked you this the last time, even though last year was not an election year, going forward, doesn't that bode well for somebody that's thinking about running in either party to be able to go door to door and say, look, I'm running as a so-and-so because my guys accomplished this year.
Right. And I think, I think the one caution I'd have for any future candidate is the only way that works is if you're willing to get along with the opposite party. So if you can work across the aisle, if you're willing to not constantly be the voice of the opposition and you're actually able to work together, then you can get stuff done.
What about the personal attacks leveled at you by a group calling themselves HIRA about you being what they called a Republican in name only, and that you were going to be the next Republican to jump ship? And you just actually came out with a piece on how difficult it is to be a representative in a minority party.
Yeah, and how difficult it is to what we're trying to do, and I said this in my closing speech. What I did this year was I tried to aggressively redefine what it means to be a minority member of the legislature. And to me, that meant being able to get along, being able to work with the majority, and actually sit at the table with them and get stuff done together. And organizations like HIRA, they don't like that. They would rather us be the opposition, even if we're losing constantly.
Yeah, there's one thing is to be against something.
Right.
But you actually have to have a plan.
Right.
I mean, and so there's a lot of people that are saying, well, look, you can just be, you can be an ostrich and pretend like something's not happening, but it is happening every day, right?
Right. And what I tell people regularly is I did not get into this to be a loser. I got into it for us to have some wins.
Is there, in your knowledge at this point, everybody that is even contemplating this, there's only a very short window of time to be able to go through this correctly to become a candidate?
Yes. So June 7th is the filing deadline.
Right.
Really, you need to decide before that. So
somebody said, even though I don't take email, this is not a political question. What does pulling papers mean? That's a great question.
Yeah.
Because I don't think we've ever explained it.
Okay, so pulling papers means you go down to the office election and you actually get your papers. You get a packet of papers to run for a district. Then you have to get signatures, and then you have to file them. So when we say file papers, it means you've actually filed the signatures.
Yeah, so anybody can go pull them. That doesn't mean they're running, because there's that cutoff date, which is June 7th.
June 7th, right. So you need time to pull the papers and file the papers and get signatures. So they really should start now.
What if you are rerunning like you are?
Yeah.
So obviously you've already quote pulled your papers.
Right. Same rules.
Yeah. So incident. And by the way, if somebody is just starting, how many signatures do they need? Say, for instance, if they're running for the House, from what I understand, it's not very many.
No, it's 15, and then they say, you should get something like 25, because what your opponent can do is start showing that some of those voters are not really registered or what.
Oh boy, yeah. And
so
wouldn't it be awful if somebody says, "Oh yeah, I'll support you." Right. Oh yeah, I'm registered. They're not.
Right. Yeah.
I'm worried about one thing, and maybe our final thing, and that would be going forward into the campaigns, which are going to be very, very shortly. The sign makers love it, right? The sticker and the bumper guys and the mail guys, they love it.
Yep.
But let's talk about maybe what you would say to people in your district to make sure that they get registered and to make sure, for heaven's sakes, they vote.
Yeah, you know what? It's going to be a tough election. I know there's a lot of voter apathy, or at least voter frustration with the way the presidential campaign has gone. But votes matter in races like mine.
Yep.
So people need to come out to vote.
Well, enjoy yourself. I know that you just went down to the big box store and bought 15 pairs of shoes that you're going to need for walking your district, right? Hey, thanks, Beth. It's been a great year. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
When we come back here on the Mike